Hello, everybody. Michael Gurian here to introduce Marion Hill and Edward Casillas. Um, uh, it's the afternoon of our What Boys Need as Males conference, and they're the first speakers of the afternoon. And as everyone knows, helpingboysthrive.org is where you can find everything after the conference. Marion and I and Fletch, we go back probably 10 years or a little more, working together quite a bit in the Head Start space. And Marion is the founder of MANCAVE, which he will talk about. And then I met Edward through Marion, also from Arizona. They're in Phoenix, Arizona, or in that area. And they do, as you can see, MANCAVE and Dad together. It just I've heard this material before. Everyone is in for really a great keynote. So thanks you guys for being here, and please take over at the end. I'll come back in if there's questions in the chat, then I'll ask you those.
All right, cool. All right, appreciate it. Thank you, Michael and
Thank you.
Fletch. We are overwhelmed and overjoyed and anxious to be with you all today around around what boys need. We always take things we take a different perspective, a different look at things. And Edward and I were having this conversation this morning as we were talking about this presentation and you saying authentic fatherhood. And I know that you see in your bulletin or in your program, it says authentic fatherhood, and then that's all you see is authentic fatherhood. So we're going to take you a step further and a step deeper in some places that we have been, where this information has been created as a result of our own experience and our own time, more than 25 years cumulatively together and working in this area. So this is Authentic Fatherhood Partnership in schools. We'll define what Authentic Fatherhood Partnerships is as we go through this, and then we'll talk a little bit more why it's so important in schools, and then how all of this rolls around, and it is what boys need. So just allow me to introduce myself. My name is Marion Hill. I am the founder and creator of ManCave. Men all need to be caring, actively engaged, vested, and encouraged. And I've got my partner here with me that'll introduce himself because he's the founder of another program that he'll talk about that's come together. Edward?
Thank you so much. And what an honor it is to be here and Michael, just talking with you and the participation and the need, right? And so it's really an honor to be here. So thank you. My name is Edward Casillas. I'm here in Tucson, Arizona. I am the creator and developer of the Dad Together program. It is a program for fathers here in Arizona. It's the first ever of its kind with the Department of Child Safety through the state. I've met Marion. I met Marion a few years back, and we had the same vision. We really want to support children by supporting fathers and being there in children's lives. So we have come together. We have blended both Man Cave and Dad together in doing just that, supporting fathers and supporting children. So we really have a lot of great information for everybody here. We're excited about this. And talking earlier this morning, Marion, we look at this from the perspective of men and fathers, but also as boys. We were once boys, and we were, that little boy within that comes out every now and then. So we're just grateful, and I have a grateful heart to be here. So thank you.
Yeah. So why that's so important to us, and we'll start this off and really kind of let me kind of start you off with my own really kind of life experience of why father engagement matters in education. Everybody's familiar with, the Meet the Teacher Night, and then, your parent teacher conferences. Those are your classics. At the beginning of the school year, Meet the Teacher Night. I'm normally coaching a football team. I always take that practice and give that practice off because I'm like, it's important that you go to Meet the Teacher Night. And it's important for moms and dads both to go to Meet the Teacher Night. Now, I have to confess and be transparent with you. I did not go to Meet the Teacher Night as my son's father. Instead, I had a proxy. And the proxy that stood in for me was my own father, my son's grandfather, that he looked forward to Meet the Teacher Night. He looked forward to going and meeting each one of the teachers. Why? Because he was an educator himself. Spent 28 years in the Air Force, retired, then became a teacher, and elevated himself in those last few years that he was with us on this earth to an assistant principal. As a matter of fact, there's a school here in Arizona, in Gilbert, Arizona, that's named after him. So he was really almost kind of like a legend. But he wanted to make sure that he went to school and he sat down and he had conversations with each one of the teachers. He wanted to know who he was and the child that he was representing, but he would also ask questions because to him it was about a partnership between the family and the teacher, and more importantly, for the teacher to understand that hey, there are males involved in this child's life, and we're going to be actively engaged, but we want a partnership with you to make sure that we can support what you're doing in the classroom and we can provide support to him at home. And so he would ask them 5 or 6 different questions with regard to how they responded to certain issues having to do with that. Now, when it came to parent teacher conferences, of course, I was always there. Parent teacher conferences supporting everything, every event that they had for my child at school, I was always made sure that I was there. That doesn't always happen today. And we see that more and more where we don't see fathers showing up, or fathers don't recognize the value and the importance of them showing up to these schools. And so fathers are important really when it comes to education because they are the missing piece in father engagement. They are the ones that are overlooked, the overlooked resource. And Edward and I do this work specifically with fathers. So we come into this space and we're working with fathers in every avenue around engagement, how to do a better job at engaging with your children, better job at engaging with your family, better job at nurturing your children. There's so much a wealth of information that I've received from the Geary Institute and that I use constantly in our programming to help them to understand the child development and child development from the brain perspective and how to nurture that. But when we finish with them and they're prepared and they're ready to go and they go out, whether they're going to social service organization, human services, or to schools, guess what? They feel like they're not even seen. They feel like they're not even heard. And for a man, for a father, he's just not going to participate. And that's not what we want because we want fathers to show up for their kids, especially for their boys, and especially to partner with these schools and school districts. So they're an overlooked resource. Schools, I believe, I'm going to say that schools unintentionally exclude fathers. I don't want to believe that they intentionally exclude them. When 97% of your teachers are female and don't look like these boys, then more than likely, yeah, they are going to be excluded. There's also a proven impact. We know that when fathers are involved, it significantly boosts student achievement. And we're trying to break the barriers. We're trying to break the barriers of saying, hey, we're fathers. We want to be involved. We want to respond to the call. We want to remove those outdated assumptions that we are just not there. The only thing that we do is provide. The only thing that we do is provide security and safety. No, we want to be involved and engaged in our children's lives. You got anything on that, Edward?
No, you hit it on the hit the nail on the head there because that's really what we've seen is a lot of fathers wanting to be involved, actively involved in their children's lives, but when they go to certain systems, schools, social service, they're just really not engaged. And we've also heard that from the workforce on how do we engage these fathers. So there's this disconnect. But when fathers are engaged and partnered with, it really improves the lives of their children.
Yep. That is it.
Yeah.
So fathers, we see them as the untapped resource when it comes to education. And we know when schools engage with fathers, oh man, there's a powerful partnership that is waiting to happen there. And so that's part of the work of what Edward and I done have, in putting together this authentic fatherhood partnership. And we'll show you in a minute what that looks like. But really, there's the 5 P's of fatherhood that we want to show you what schools miss out on when they're not engaging in fathers. We see them in 5 areas. We see them as the participator and the problem solver. This is what they are to their children. They are the modeling decision making entity. And so this is where the kids learn modeling or decision making skills, and fathers provide that steady support throughout the challenges that kids face. So basically helping them to understand because kids are doing 2 things. Number one, they're watching, so they're watching their father, they're watching their mother. They want to know how they're handling pressure situations. They want to know how they're handling making decisions in situations. So they're watching and they're listening as well. And so when fathers are actively engaged, great model for participator and problem solver. Also, preparer. So one of the things that fathers do, and I learned this so much from really working with Michael, working with some of the others, Dr. Warren Farrell, with all of these other speakers that are here. fathers are equipping their children with skills and readiness to face life's challenges confidently. It's what fathers is part of our role. We prepare our children for the world. They're also the playmate. We teach in our program a lot of play, how you can use play to teach discipline, how you can use play to teach resilience, how you can use play for rulemaking, respect for authority, so many different areas that you can use play. But dads are a great playmate and building trust and joy through active interaction and those shared experiences. Then they're the principal guide, the values and the morals and instilling those things, the foundation are right there to guide their children. We take nothing away from moms. What we do is we pour our energy into dads because dads haven't been showing up or they're kind of sitting on the back burner, and we want to make sure that they're actively engaged. And then they're also the provider, ensuring stability, security, and resources for healthy development. Again, we recognize both mom and dad. We recognize both maternal and paternal nurturance, but our focus with what we do with Man Cave and Dad Together is zeroing in and focusing on the father and supporting him really in this day and age. So we had to do some things. We had to do some things because we wanted to make sure that fathers were supported in schools and that schools understood the impact of fathers and that schools understood you were missing out on something when you're not bringing fathers into this space. We also wanted to make sure that boys, especially, get more role models. They see more role models around the school. I don't care if that's security. I don't care if that's meeting and doing different activities. We do different activities with dads and their kids. We do different activities with the entire family. Whether dads are participating on PTA and school boards and helping in the decision making process, we want dads to show up. And so we've got some programs that we've created that Edward and I have created over the years. Edward and I have been together for about 5 years, but we're just now coming into this space of putting Man Cave and Dad together and really doing the work that we feel is making a difference in the lives of children and families. We really have two sayings. Man Cave is all about changing the lives of children and families through father engagement, and Dad Together is really dads helping dads be dads. So we have Dad Together and Man Cave and our mission, impact, and the programs that we provide. And so what we do is we go in and we provide services around father engagement training for the workforce. We want to make sure that when fathers step out and they're going to receive services or they're stepping into schools, that the workforce is three things. We need them to be father aware, father friendly, father inclusive. So we want them to be. So we need to create that environment, then create the relationship inside of the environment so that we make sure that fathers are all in participating. So father engagement training for the workforce, Authentic Fatherhood Partnership. Edward's going to talk about that. Then we have Man Cave 101. We don't forget moms. We do work with both moms and dads. But the reason that we work with moms so much, they're the gatekeeper. We can't get to dad without going through the mom and without getting the mom to say, yeah, I support this. I agree with this. I want him to participate. So this is why we have Man Cave 101. Dad Together Cafe. It's a great opportunity for us to go in, sit down in the community, sit down in the school, have a group of dads sitting at the table, have some questions sitting out. We want to find out where the gaps are. We want to find out what they're pleased with as it relates to the school. We want to find out what the school can do better. And it gives us an opportunity then to be able to paint a picture for the school, to paint a picture for those families to say, okay, here are the things that we can do better and how we can support you. Conscious Fathering, Nurturing Fathers program, two programs that we use. But I want to hit our flagship program and give Edward some time to spend in a program that kind of he created, I'm refining, and we're kind of expanding together. And that is really the work that we do with schools around the Authentic Fatherhood Partnership. Edward, do you say?
Thank you so much. It's amazing to just see all this. We're so involved in the work, but sometimes it's nice to step back and say, wow, we really are doing all of this work. And one of the things that came to me from the fathers, from the workforce several years ago, was how do we engage fathers? And fathers, I just don't feel like they're really engaging with me. I don't feel it's like authentic. And so I sat down with a colleague of mine, and we came up with five major principles. And this is authentic fatherhood partnerships. And we noticed when all of these partnerships, all of these principles were applied, there were better outcomes. There were better outcomes for the children, and there were better outcomes for the fathers. So the first one was a father's impact. What does that mean, right? A lot of times we don't know. We understand that parenting is important, but we don't know specifically how important the father's impact is on the child's development, on the children's lives. We hear a lot about parenting in general, but not specifically about fathers. So it's important that the workforce understand what those are, right? What are those specific impacts that fathers have? So that's the first major principle. When we're working with the workforce, we have to lay that foundation. So we come back, we come with research, we come with data, and then from there, and this is a really important one, and we spend a lot of time here, is exploring our personal fatherhood experiences. Because if we had a great father, great, we know the impact, we understand what that is. But if we didn't have a great relationship or we didn't have a father involved in our lives, that could also affect our view of fathers. So as a father comes in, we might be unintentionally having a bias towards this father because we still maybe have some unresolved issues or whatever those things are, and the fathers pick up on that. That's what we've heard from these fathers going into to schools and to other organizations. It's like they had a problem with me, and I'm just there to be with my child and try to help. So that's so important that we understand our relationship with our father in the workforce, good or bad, and the biases that come from that. So our third principle comes from that, and that's roadblocks and realities. And so, what are some of the roadblocks that we are maybe unintentionally put in front of this father because of our biases, because of our relationship with our father, and understanding what those are and being able to overcome them, and the reality of, okay, I do have this bias. And I always tell the story of the Brute story, right? It's a Brute cologne, and how my father always wore Brute cologne. And as a child, he was kind of a yeller, and sometimes I would remember being kind of scared because he would get mad and he that Brute cologne. Well, I didn't realize that I had a bias when I was working with a father and he wore Brute cologne. And I smelt Brute cologne, and all of a sudden I was that little boy again. And I had this bias. I treated this father differently. And I had to realize, you know what, that's not my dad. That's not my father. Just because the Brute cologne reminded me of him, that's not really him. So I addressed that. I addressed that bias, and I was able to work with that father for who he is. And so that's the third principle. Very important to understand that the roadblocks and realities. And that's what we're teaching our workforce. So far, we got the father's impact, understanding their important role. We understand the relationship that we have with our own father, and then the biases that come with that, and overcoming those biases and able to see that father for who he is. So from there, we move into what is authentic partnership, understanding what it means to be authentic, what it means to actually partner with. And when I talk about partnership, when it comes to fathers, a lot of times it's the invitation, it's the engagement, but the powerful piece is the partnership. And I think all of us can think of a time where we felt we had a partner, right? We had a goal, we had a teammate, we had a partner. They understood where I was coming from, I understood where they were coming from. Like me and Marion, we're great partners. We have open communication, we have mutual respect, and that's what makes us authentic. And so when it comes to the fathers pick up on that. The fathers know if you're being authentic with them. And when they understand, like, you know what, they're on the same page, we're on the same page and wanting the best for my child, they're going to give you their best selves. They're going to give you their authentic person. And from there, you're able to reach goals together. So in a school setting, there might be some behavioral issues with the son or the daughter. A lot of times it's the son, right? But when you have a partner, you're able to receive feedback and hearing about their child's behavior, but you're able to come together and resolve it as a team. And that's what authentic partnership is. And when you understand that, you're able to move forward and really address the issue. So the last one, after we've built all of those foundations, those principles, is the actual strategies for implementation. And it's learning and applying these practical approaches to to keep the meaningful engagement and partnership going. And that's where you build together. You build those strategies together. The father, the school, the system, you've already come together. You understand what partnership is. And now you're going to lay out this foundation and goals together as strategies to make sure you're reaching these goals. So it's not just one telling the other, this is what you need to do, because fathers have felt like that too. Fathers have felt, and this is a feedback that we've gotten, fathers have felt like I was just being told what to do. I had no feedback. I wasn't able to participate in these strategies. But when all of these are applied, that's when the impact happens for the child. The child now knows mom and dad, dad is on board, the school is on board, the system's on board, and they have a surrounding team that is supporting them. And they can't play any games either, right? Because that's what children do. So that is what Authentic Fatherhood Partnership is. That is what we have developed, and that is what we are teaching the workforce. We're teaching the school from the top down. When all of these are implemented, you have an understanding. Now, when the fathers come into the school, the fathers come into the system, they are being fully supported and the child benefits. So that's kind of the quick version of it, but it's kind of more of a 2-day training because it kind of goes deep, Marion. And I know sometimes when we do, almost every time when we do this workshop and presentation for a couple hours, there's somebody that expresses the relationship they had with their father. And that could be triggering. So we want to make sure and to address those as they come. But every time, right? Every time, Marion, there's been somebody that said, "Oh, this is what happened with my dad," and there's usually a tear or two shed, but there's that aha moment, like, "Oh, yeah, I do that." So
Yeah, yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
that's the short version.
Yeah, and that's a short version because really each one of these five can be at least a half a day to a day's worth of training. We're tucking this in 5 minutes. Normally, even when we're doing a conference, we'll do an Authentic Fatherhood Partnership Part One, which is an hour and a half, Authentic Fatherhood Partnership Part Two, which is an hour and a half, because you do spend some time in helping them to discover the impact of fathers, and then more importantly, that fatherhood experience. We'll take them through a visual exercise and it is, we do a warning beforehand before doing it that it could be triggering based off of relationships or experiences that you've had with your own fathers or males in your life. And we walk them through it because we want them to know that look back over your own life. There's some things inside of you based off a relationship with your father that could be triggering as to the way that you're treating other fathers or other men that are coming into this environment. And so we spend a lot of time in that space, and we spend a lot of time in the biases, the conscious and the unconscious biases, because all it takes is one person to rise up and they can crash an entire fatherhood program. Authentic Fatherhood Partnership is presented from the top to the bottom. So when we go into a school, even if we're in a district office, we want the superintendent to hear the information all the way down to the janitor. It's from the top to the bottom because everybody has to be delivering the same message. Everybody has to have the same idea of being father aware, father friendly, father inclusive organization in everything that we do. So that's our portion in terms of the workforce, and then we start to work with the fathers that are coming in, the moms and dads that are coming in. And so this next space that we go into is what we call MANCAVE 101, which is the power of balanced parenting energies. Remember, I spoke about the fact that mom is the gateway, like we get to the fathers. And I can tell you that's not something that I'm just throwing out there or that I read in a book. It's actually something that a tool that I actually use. I had an organization, a school district that I was working with. I was struggling in getting fathers to come out and participate in the program. And I'd get 5 or 6 fathers every now and then, here and there, in the program. And something hit me. The moms are the gateway. Go through the moms. Bring mom and dad together. Brought mom and dad together, and actually did this training. And the training actually came out of uh, some training that I received from Michael in conversations that I had with Michael around maternal and paternal nurturance. And there was a book specifically that talked about the 8 gifts of the father, the 8 gifts of the mother from paternal and maternal nurturance to show that they're different, but when they're put together, that they create a fully socially, emotionally, cognitively developed child. And that is a training that I did. And all of a sudden now I've got 65, I've got 70 men because it's the moms that are saying go, you can go, because we know the work that's being done there, and it's enhancing your ability to be a better man, to be a better father, to be a better husband. And so when we're in this space talking about balancing parenting energies, how important it is to have both masculine energy and feminine energy, and to try to balance the two out. So we know that there's assertiveness, protectiveness, physical engagement that builds courage and confidence on the masculine side, while at the same time on the other side, on the feminine side, there's the empathy, the emotional support, and the nurturing that develops that emotional intelligence. We want those two integrated together. We want a combination of that so that we can see the full development for that child on the spectrum of social, emotional, and cognitive capabilities. And so once we do that, then we can pin down and go a little bit deeper now with the dads. We can break them off. And so we have specific programming for moms, specific programming for dads. Now understand, all of this is happening through the school. We've got the school on board. We've got programming now for mom and dad. We're doing things with mom and dad in the classroom. So now we're creating a partnership, because it's about community. It's about the child in the middle. You've got the teacher, you got the parents, you have community. That's we're incorporating this. And so now we start to dig a little bit deeper with dad, because it's like, hey, yeah, we appreciate that you're volunteering, but hey, let's work on some things. Let's have some conversation around things. One of the things that I found, and Edward as well, with all of the fathers that we work with, it's rough out there. I can say that it's rough out there, because men do suffer in silence, and they want a space where they can come in and have these conversations and talk about maybe some of the things are that's bothering them, but more importantly, they need a space to come in and see they're not alone, that there are other fathers, there are other men in that space that deal with the same issue. Even if it's juggling, transitioning from work to home, and the best use of time, even things like that. Even if it's strategies around how do I do a better job at nurturing myself, as a man and as a father. How do I nurture my health? How do I make sure that I'm on point there? How do I nurture myself intellectually? Like, what am I reading? What am I learning? How am I growing? What's my creativity? How do I nurture my creativity? Are there things that I like to do that I want to be able to? That's the creative side of me. So it's just a slew of things that we're able to have these conversations on, and to bring them into this space, because all of this is giving them energy. It's giving them energy to then go back and pour into their families. It's giving them energy to be more participatory in the school setting. So we have conscious fathering. It's really around intentional purpose. It's about being fully present and engaged. That's why MANCAVE is men all need to be caring, actively engaged, vested, and encouraged. We don't want you to just be physically there. We want you to be emotionally and mentally engaged. And then there's that emotional attunement. So that deep understanding of a child's emotional world. We have this foundation, and there's a little pyramid that I built for them to show them here's what every child needs, and this is what mom and dad need to pour into them. And in that space, every child needs to be seen, soothed, safe, and secure. And breaking each one of those things down, and they need it from their mom, they need it from their dad, they need they need the paternal nurturance when it comes to being seen, soothed, safe, and secure. That's about emotional attunement. And then there's next levels to that if they're provided that type of environment. And then co-parenting partnerships, co-parenting, collaborating. I call this, even though it says co-parenting, to me, it's bi-strategic parenting, and that bi-strategic parenting again is something that over the years that I've been working with Michael, that I've been working with Fletch. I think you guys can see that there is a lot of the Gearing Institute on top of this fatherhood programming that we use, because we're going into schools and really supporting the work that Michael and Fletch have been into schools here, even in the Head Start program, and we go in and do the parent engagement portion of it. So we want to make sure that what's happening in the classroom is carrying over, into the home. So conscious fathering, and then that helps us to dig a little bit deeper with our flagship program, which is our Nurturing Fathers program. And so that really the core focus of that program: self-awareness, emotional intelligence, compassion and empathy development, effective communication skills, and cooperative co-parenting strategies. I could talk on and on and on about a Nurturing Father program. I am a trainer consultant. Edward's a trainer consultant. We've been through it individually ourselves. I've been through it 3 times before I even became a trainer consultant. Learned from it, learn something new from it every single time. And then when I take the Nurturing Fathers program, I lay on top of that Geary Institute and understanding the difference between the way that boys and girls learn, conscious discipline, those kinds of things on top of it. It really does create a powerhouse that we can pour into the fathers. Edward, you want to say anything about that?
As far as nurturing fathers go, every time I participate in a group or support a facilitator, I am amazed how the fathers just grow and how, in the beginning, fathers are kind of like, I don't know, I'm not going to share. And then I think by the end of the first group, they're hugging each other. And like by the end where they're graduating, they're bringing their families. It's just amazing to see these men, these fathers grow. Um, because what they're really doing is meeting the needs of that little boy within them. And that's why it's so important to have these kind of programs because then they're able to go home and be that positive role model for their own sons and, give those their sons what maybe they didn't get when they were kids. And so it's really a powerful program. It touches my heart every time. And I really like it, and I'd like to see more fathers take it and more fathers be touched by it.
Yeah, yeah. And understand there's a method to the madness of how we got here. So this wasn't something that I woke up with or Edward woke up and said, hey, let's do Nurture Fathers program or how do we figure out the programming? This started off as something as simple as we need to get dads out and do some activities with their kids out here. That's what we were doing. We were just doing activities. We were just doing what we call family engagement. Have the dads come out. Let's do some activities. Once a year, we'll have a father fun day and bring the whole family out and do some activities. It was fathers. It was men that were coming up to me and they were like, okay, what's next? And I'm just like, what do you mean, what's next? What's next is there anything more to this fatherhood programming? Can we go deeper? Okay, when you say deeper, what is it that you want to know? How do I learn, child development, how my child is developing and how I'm impacting or having an effect on that? How do I learn to be a better husband? How do I learn to just be a better person when maybe I'm fighting some trauma or fighting some issues from my past? And I had one father come up to me and say, hey, all of this play is great, but me playing with my child and interacting with my child on the playground and playing games and coming in and being a part of this is not stopping me from wanting to hit my wife. That's not stopping that. And so at that point, we knew, okay, yeah, we need to go a little bit deeper. These guys want to be in a space where they can have some conversation. That's how the Nurturing Fathers program really came about and came to be. And there are more things in here. Like I said, Edward and I could talk about it. We do surveys in here before and after. There are things in here that we do with the Nurturing Fathers program that help us to see if we want to know your knowledge of nurturing, your application of nurturing. There are things that we do in the Nurturing Fathers program with some of the surveys that give us an indication if there's an indication or a possibility of child abuse or of abuse, domestic violence. There's a lot of things in here that we use specifically to help the father. So those really are those three areas. Once we get fathers volunteering coming out in schools, we really don't have to say we're going to push this on you. They're out there. They're developing a community. They want to do more things together. The school is benefiting from it, but they're also benefiting because they're learning and they're growing. So what kind of strategies for the schools can we use to foster this? And I like this because a lot of this all comes from fathers. There's one thing a father said to me once that said, "I will never come back to a school if a teacher refers to me as dad." And I'm like, "Okay, talk to me about that." And he was like, "Simply, this is my name. Call me by my name. I have a name." And so that's all about building, relationship. The other thing for them is we need things. I don't need a long drawn out letter or a long drawn out email, every week or every day. I don't need that. Just make it short to the point, get right to it, clear and concise. And so visual messaging. This is one of the things I walk into schools all the time. And the first thing I do is I'm looking at the floor, I'm looking at the walls. I'm listening for, conversation or is there any little ambient music playing in the background? What I'm looking for is this a welcoming place? When it says displaying father positive posters, photos, messaging throughout hallways, this is what I don't see in schools at all. You go into classrooms, this is what I don't see in classrooms. And so this is a part of our work with with the schools to say you need to become more inviting and create more of a welcoming atmosphere for fathers. Put a picture on the wall of a father and a child, or a father walking with a child. So display positive father positive posters and photos and messaging. The other thing, accessible scheduling. I am more than willing to be a part of what's going on at the school, but you have to schedule your events, your conferences, times that I can volunteer when I'm accessible. One of those times are in the morning, those times are in the evening, those times are on the weekends. So it has to be in those spaces. Staff training, that's what we talk about. We spend a lot of time training staff members on how to engage fathers respectively. And then those physical spaces kind of create welcoming areas where fathers feel like they can gather. I'll give you an example of that. Having had a space at one of our programs, and it was just a space, and they had a kiosk, and the kiosk had all these little papers and announcements and everything. And I was like, there's no father, there's no man that's going to come in here and read all that and pull that and take that away. I said, take the kiosk out, and we put in a big 60-inch flat screen TV, and then the flat screen TV then had the programming running through it. You're all familiar with it. You've seen the messaging boards. It had pictures of the staff. It had upcoming events. It had QR codes on there where they could register, and they stood around staring at that screen, talking to one another, taking pictures of the QR codes, and they were more engaged. They knew more information rather than having it sitting there in a kiosk that they're not going to read. So all of these things, visual messaging, accessible scheduling, staff training, physical spaces. These are things that fathers are telling us that they need to be more involved so that they're aware of what's going on. And then building community. This is what we do with our programming in the schools, is building community and peer support. So we've got mentorship networks that comes out as a result of the Nurturing Fathers program. We have leadership opportunities, encouraging fathers. Edward himself, within one of our Head Start programs here in Maricopa County, is a part of the policy council. So here's a father that's sitting on the policy council in the midst of everyone else who represents classrooms who are female. So leadership opportunities, encouraging school decision making and being a part of leadership, advisory council, policy discussions. That's where we want fathers to participate more and more. And then this Real Fathers Initiative is something that we're working on. It's being able to connect young dads with what I call the OGs. I was telling Edward a story earlier about one of the staff people that we have whose father and mother are retired. And the mother happens to actually work at a Circle K, and the Circle K, she should be just, her daughter's like, you just need to retire. You don't need to do anything. Well, she works at the Circle K. She happens to work at a Circle K that's in a dangerous area part of town. As a matter of fact, it's right outside of one of the county jails in Maricopa County in the Phoenix area. And so her father, he's retired, so he figured he'd just go to Circle K to be security for the mom. Doesn't have a job, just going to Circle K to be security. There was an inmate that was just released from the jail that came to Circle K. He got into a confrontation with the mom while the father was there, and there were some words that were exchanged. And the father was like, "Hey, be respectful. You don't talk to a woman like that." And the guy turned around and looked at him and said, "Who are you? Who are you talking to me?" And he's like, "You need to be respectful because that's the right thing to do for a male to a female. But the other thing is the fact that you're talking to my wife." And at that point, the father even said, "We need to go outside and handle this business. Let's go handle the business." And they went outside. And even before, there's different ways of handling it, but the father just wanted this young kid to see, hey, I'm standing up and supporting, my wife. They got into a little confrontation. The younger guy backed down, and he backed down because he's like, "You're an OG, man. An OG, that old, you're the original gangster. Like you're the one. Like you are a father. You've been in this game for a while." And he just gave him respect. Went back inside, apologized to his wife, and went on about his business. So there's some credibility. There's some things that play into that Real Fathers Initiative, and having the older community experience, the seasoned community fathers with those young dads. And then leveraging technology and communication, we use this digital connection. We use what we call Slick Text. Slick Text is our digital reminder via text for dads. We use social media groups and mobile apps. It's a way that we can communicate with our fathers. It's a way that we can send out motivating statements. It's a way if they want to ask questions, they can ask questions. We're in the process now of applying for a pilot program that we want to do with the National Fatherhood Initiative that's called Fathering in 15. Fathering in 15 basically takes your phone and makes it a classroom, and you get a lesson, a 15-minute lesson. I think it's weekly. I think you go through it, and then there's a little activity for you to do. And so we want to do that and utilize that, and then have some kind of reward at the end of it to recognize those fathers. But it's a gateway to get into our program, and we're using social media. We're using digital connection to be able to get to fathers. Success stories. Fathers love success stories. They love success stories about their kids. They love success stories about them interacting with their kids. And other fathers are competitive by nature. Men are competitive by nature. Well, if you're in there, then I'm going to do something, and I'm going to get in there. So using it, sharing compelling stories, and then that virtual access, as I talked about, do our Nurture the Fathers program both in person and virtually as well, whatever it takes, whether we have to do it one-on-one or whether we can do it in group. We're using all of these three modes. And so again, it's something that we encourage schools to use as well. Use digital connection, use success stories, in the newsletters or things like that you're putting out, and then have virtual access, to your programming. What's the impact of all of this? When fathers are engaged, children improve. Data clearly tells us that academic success is increased by 2 times. Children involved with fathers are twice as likely to achieve high grades and complete their education. And that's what we want, especially in that environment of boys. I've heard, Dr. Warren Farrell talk so much about the gap, that exists. I've heard and have had conversation with Michael about that gap. For every one that gets a bachelor's degree, for every woman that gets female that gets a bachelor's degree, there's a certain amount of men that get their bachelor's degree, and then as it expands, the gap becomes wider and wider and wider. But we recognize coming out of high school, 40% of the boys coming out of high school matriculate to the secondary education. It should be more. And I recognize that that college isn't for everybody, but those are things that we need to address really as a society. But I think from the get-go, got to get them through school. 43% better behavior, reduction in behavioral problems and disciplinary issues when fathers are actively engaged. I know this just based off of the work and my involvement with the Gearian Institute, just in the pre-K environment. That was one of the reasons that we did a pilot with the Gearian Institute for years, was to test whether or not we could go in and provide strategies to teachers where it was all inclusive for both boys and girls, thereby reducing the behavioral issues in the classroom. And we incorporated family and community engagement into that to support that, and behavior certainly was improved. And then a 75% with regard to emotional well-being. We've seen the numbers. I've seen the numbers and the different data that we use. Children report higher emotional well-being and self-esteem with consistent father involvement. So when fathers are engaged, boys thrive. They've got a role model there. They've got dad there. There's a stronger male identity there. So fathers provide kind of those crucial role models, help boys develop that positive sense of self, healthy masculinity, a clear understanding of their place in the world, reducing the risk, behaviors. Because again, watching and talking at the same time, you've got an entity that you can watch and you can talk to. It is so difficult to see young men, mid portion or midway through their lives, and they lose their fathers, lose them tragically. I just dealt with a case like that yesterday, and we're bringing this young man in, having time to talk to this young man, and bringing them into the space because he feels like he's lost. My dad is not there anymore, and he didn't have a community of men that were wrapped around him. So reducing those risk behaviors, boys with actively involved fathers. Okay, there's lower rates of aggression, delinquency, substance abuse. Data clearly tells us that. Look at the Census Bureau and look at their data that shows that there's an uptick when fathers are not involved. It goes the opposite. Aggression increases, delinquency, substance abuse definitely increases. 269% more likely to be involved in the juvenile delinquent juvenile justice system with the father when you're not engaged. This is where we see boy crisis and lack of father engagement having an impact on these boys. And then enhanced emotional intelligence. Fathers that are present are helping their boys learn, express their emotions constructively. I told Edward, I'm like, I'm in my 60s, and I still have to be conscious about expressing my emotions constructively. I'm like, sometimes we just struggle with that, or building empathy, navigating social relationships with greater skills. It's something that moms can do it, but fathers need to be there and fathers need to be engaged. And this is another reason why we want to make sure that we're involved in fathers in all aspects of their children's development, and that being involved in schools. And so when fathers are involved in schools, then boys thrive. So we see academic outcomes improving. We see enhanced school behavior, stronger school connection. And there's different areas that I can go into this. I won't, but those are the three things that we see when fathers are present: school events, parent-teacher conferences, volunteering activities. It does reinforce the value of education to both boys and girls, and then that enhanced school behavior because fathers are actively engaged. Now we're seeing we're seeing greater conduct in the classroom, greater respect for authority. That is a big one on the paternal nurturing side, that great respect for authority, and then a stronger school connection that's developed. So together, that's where the work that Edward and I are doing and are so passionate about doing and going into schools. And this work started in the pre-K, and it's elevated to, the elementary, junior high, and high school for us in this area. We do healthy masculinity, training around healthy masculinity and giving boys a circle, the same circle that we give our fathers, the same circle that we give boys, just to talk about things that they're dealing with today. So when schools authentically partner with the fathers, then there's a transformative opportunity and this is what's rippling across all generations. We're trying to build stronger families. And so how do you make sure that your school, so make your school really that father-friendly school? The goal is that if you can go into your school and say, and look around, and you just have this feeling, we are a father-aware school. We're aware that fathers are coming, whether they're dropping their kids off, picking their kids up, wanting to be engaged. We see them and we hear them. We are a father-aware school. If you're not that, then you need to start with awareness. That's where that's where our programs come in. We train the workforce on being father-aware, and then begin to launch programs. And it starts off with something as simple as donuts with dads. You don't like to hear it, but donuts and dads is the easiest place to start, where you can begin having conversation around implementing some father engagement programs. And then you get that commitment to commit to partnership. That's where now you're building the ongoing partnership. That's what's going to value and empower fathers as partners in your school. Again, I've done presentations and cut it in different ways. There's so many different pockets and so many things. This is really kind of a high level for us in doing this presentation to give you the impact of fathers, but we know the impact of them because Edward and I, we are fathers. We are in this space, and we're in this space all the time. There's some things there: MANCAVE, Dad Together. Both of those kind of are under the same MANCAVE.org Nurturing Fathers program, where there's some information that we use as it relates to nurturing fathers, the curriculum that we use, really kind of why we do this work. This work, just as you're doing the work with boys, we're coming at it from another angle. To do the work, our end goal is to impact boys. We just happen to be doing it through the lens of fathers and through the lens of fatherhood. And there's a lot of healing that has to take place there for those fathers and spending time with them so that they are spending time and having an impact on their boys. But this is the lane that we go down. And when I say we go down this lane, I can answer somebody out there is thinking the question, well, what about single moms? Okay, single moms are cool and single moms are great for doing their things, and we appreciate everything that they do, but this is not the lane. This lane that we've created is a lane for fathers. I'll go one step further because we've had this question thrown out at us: LGBTQ. This is not the lane for LGBTQ. We are a fatherhood program that deal with men that identify with themselves, that identify as males. We encourage other organizations, go out and find those resources that you need. But right now in this space that we're in, it's for fathers. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we do. Authentic Fatherhood Partnership. Again, presentations, workshops, implementation planning, technical assistance. That's who we are. I've got a whole team that's behind me. Edward and I working together in this space. This is our goal. This is our vision. This is our calling. This is what we do. Edward, got anything else to say?
I'm just thankful for this space to really talk about it. And I think at the heart of what we're all here for is our next generation, right? Our children, our boys, and wanting them to grow up to be men with not that much trauma, right? Because I mean, that's what we're trying to do is to give them the space to grow and be healthy. So when they become men and they become fathers, they're able to pass down those positive traits that they seen from their positive male role
Yeah,
models. So
that's
this
it.
this is great, and I'm so thankful for everything. And Marion, I just got to say, every time I do something with you. You capture me as an audience every single time. So thank you so much. I love partnering with you.
Yeah, that's our thing. So that's our time. Fletch, Dr. Gurian, hey, thank you for having us on. Thank you for letting us be a part of this magnificent work, and we look forward to doing more in the future.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And I second that, what you said, Edward. I've listened to Marion many times now.
Every
My
time.
audio went away. It's just great, great stuff. And such a neat follow-up for people who are watching this in order in this conference. Warren Farrell this morning laying out all the stats, you referring to him, and then, about fatherhood. So beautiful. Okay, so we have time for one or two questions. There's a lot in the chat, a dialogue back and forth, which is really neat. There's a question. Um, this is a challenge. Organizations like Big Brothers and Sisters work tirelessly to get enough male mentors, but are lucky to get one guy to sign up for every 5 women. This is a big problem. So, do you have any, um, uh, what do you think? Got any magic?
I don't know. I don't know this. I don't know that it's the. I don't know that it's the magic. I think it's taking the time to look at what you are doing to engage these fathers and rewinding, because that's what we did. We went back and said we need the Authentic Fatherhood Partnership. Let's create that and let's put that in front of the workforce, because again, it's about creating that father aware, organization when we have those needs for fathers. It's also about creating training opportunities where we're communicating with the community, both mothers and fathers, around the importance of having fathers volunteer and be engaged, in the process. So sometimes you gotta, I mean, keep doing what you're doing, and I know it can be discouraging, and don't give up in that, but sometimes you got to put it on pause, back it up, and go, maybe there's a piece that we're missing. And the reason that I say that is all it takes is one. I've experienced it myself. All it takes is one person that might have a bias or doesn't agree with bringing men into the space or bringing fathers into the space, and they will bring your efforts way down.
Hmm, okay. And then one more. There's a dialogue in the chat, which is really interesting. John Gray, who spoke this morning, is in that dialogue, and people going back and forth. And it's really neat, and kind of a thing that's growing out of it is, and I'll lead it to a question, is discussion about how important the mom is in facilitating all of this, and how important it is for her. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot going on here, but like sort of to respect him as dad and to try to facilitate him getting help to be engaged. That's sort of your message. Is there anything else you want
Yeah,
to say about that?
yeah, that's it. And as a matter of fact, I can't tell you how many couples that I've had that have come up to me when they understand maternal and paternal nurturance. We go through it together. When they understand it and they know that it's different, but it works for the child, that have said to me, "You saved our marriage." Because they didn't understand. You had the mom thinking the dad, she didn't have any confidence in the father because she was thinking that he's supposed to nurture the child the way that she nurtures the child, and it's completely different. And I think that's the space, that conversation that they're having right there. That is it right there. That's what we do. That's why we don't leave moms behind. That's why we bring moms along, because moms are the ones, they are the gatekeeper. We recognize them as that. We support them and all of that. And we want our message to be, hey, we're not doing anything with the fathers by themselves that's going to be in opposition to what you're doing together as a couple in your bi-strategic parenting. We want you both jumping on the same trampoline together, and we want you both pouring into your children the way that you do and the way that you're wired to do. I could go into that whole thing too. There's so much I've received from the Geary Institute into the way that you're wired to be paternal or to be maternal, that's going to support your children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, guys. I know we have to end. We could go on all day, but thank you so much. Marion, Edward, thank you. Thanks to the audience. We're going to come out of this link. We're going to go into the next one and talk to Dr. Christina Hoff Summers. So thanks again, Marion and Edward and everyone.
All right.